Engage.
Hey guys, I'm finally doing my next episode review. I haven't done one in forever now. I kind of got sidetracked with all these other like little projects or random videos that I had going. But this still, I want this to still be like the main focus of my channel because I still want to try to get through all 7 seasons eventually. So I'm gonna start trying to do these more often. This episode is episode 16, I believe. It's called Too Short a Season. And going into this, I didn't remember hardly anything about this episode. All I knew was that the really old admiral, he ended up de-aging and becoming young again. But other than that, I had no idea what the plot was, which was kind of exciting because, you know, most of these episodes, I know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know it scene by scene, but I know how it ends. I know what the plot is. So it kind of takes away something. But this one, it was really neat because I could actually go into it fresh. So basically, what's happening is there's a hostage situation on this planet, so they get this really old admiral, he's 85, his name's Mark Jameson. The governor of the planet asked him to come in and negotiate because 45 years earlier, right before that planet had a civil war, Mark Jameson had negotiated with this guy previously for the release of hostages, and that's what's going on again. The governor says that terrorists have taken hostages and they want to negotiate with the Federation for their release. So they get there, and the admiral's kind of acting kind of sketchy. So whenever they finally get to the planet, he contacts the governor of the planet, and he realizes that the governor is trying to get back at him for something, that there are no terrorists, really the governor is one who's taking the hostages. And the admiral slowly de-ages, and in the end, he leads a raid on the planet, they can't find the hostages, and then finally he decides to give himself up because he's pretty much dying anyway. So he goes down to the governor. He finally convinces the governor that he is Mark Jameson, even though he looks like he's about 15 now, and then he dies in his wife's arms. So, as far as the plot goes, I really liked it just because it was very cohesive. And I feel like a lot of these episodes, you know, they have the main plot and they have the subplot. And especially in the first season, those two don't mesh very well. Either the subplot is something that's completely contrived, like in Angel 1 with the disease on the ship. It's completely contrived so as to make the main plot to work, or else they're kind of disconnected. But this one, you know, it didn't really have a subplot. The entire episode was very cohesive. It felt, you know, almost like a movie plot where everything actually is in there for a reason. And I thought that was very good, you know, especially for a first season episode. Other stuff I liked. I liked Mark Jameson and his wife, Ann Jameson. I thought that they were very believable characters because we're doing construction on our bathroom. Sorry. But I thought, you know, as far as guest characters go on the show, sometimes they don't have much depth. You know, a lot of times they do have good ones, but, you know, equally, maybe half and half, they're just kind of on there, you don't know a lot about them, and you're not really rooting for them or rooting against them just because, you know, they don't have much character development. But with these two, I actually felt bad for him because the admiral is slowly de-aging, he's having like these kind of convulsions, and his wife didn't know that he was going to try to do this, so she's confused, and she is upset because, you know, she thinks that he's going to be younger and have this entire life to live over, and where does that leave her? But, you know, she's still really in love with him, and he's still really in love with her. So I thought that, you know, as far as the, you know, kind of like the sub-characters go, you know, this one episode, I really liked him, and like I actually felt bad for him at the end because in the last scene, you know, he dies in his wife's arms, and it's very, you know, it's not heartbreaking, but it's sad. Something that this touches on is the idea of immortality, and I think that's something that Star Trek brings up a number of times in the show, and it kind of shows, like in this episode and in others, that immortality is not something that we should achieve, and really it's not even something that we should try for, because it's not something that we should want. And if you do try to get immortality, you're going to be kind of punished, and something bad is going to happen to you. Like Mark Jameson, he tries to become young again, and he dies, which is kind of like the literal punishment. But like Riker in Hide and Q offered him, you know, all these powers, and immortality was just kind of, you know, a bonus. You know, he had all these powers, and of course he was also going to be basically immortal. But Riker, if he had accepted, he wouldn't have died, but he would have kind of lost his soul almost. He would have lost what made him human. So, you know, he would have been immortal and he would have been godlike, but he would have lost a big part of himself. And like in the movie Generations, where I think his name's Soren, is trying to get into the Nexus. He would have the form of immortality there, but at the end of the movie, Picard is saying that time is something that we should cherish, and our mortality is what makes us who we are, and time is kind of like a companion that comes along with us on the journey. It's not something that we should try to hide from. And I think that that's something that Star Trek, discusses a lot, and I think that what it's saying is that we can have all these technological advances, we can literally make it to the stars, we can do so much, but we still have to hold on to those core things that make us human. And the fact that we die almost gives meaning to our lives, and we can't try to get away from that. It's like the one thing that we can't beat in this world is our death. And I think that's I really like the way that they approach that in Star Trek. And I think that they approach it a lot. Like, I can't really think of any other specific episodes off the top of my head. But, like this one, Hide and Q, and then Generations is an entire movie focusing around that concept that you can't outrun death, and really, you shouldn't try. So overall, I think this is a really good episode. I was reading in my Star Trek companion that I have, it had a little blurb about this episode, and I think one of the writers was saying how it was really heavy on dialogue, it didn't have much action, it was kind of slow, but that was something that I personally liked about it. I think that that added a lot to it, and I think that that sets it apart from the rest of the episodes in the first season. So, I don't know, I think this is a really fantastic episode, and I was pleasantly surprised.